Welcome to ZKast, everybody. I'm Avaya from ZK Research, and I'm your host, and I'm back for another one of my thought leadership videos. I'm here with Simon Harrison, CMO of Avaya. Simon, we're here live at Enterprise Connect 2022. It's great to be back live. I think this has been a show in the making for the better part of 2 years. So how you been doing?
It's been a little bit busy, to say the least. But yeah, it's great to have the opportunity to chat to you. Lots of exciting things that have come from what has been somewhat untoward. We wouldn't have expected what happened clearly, but it's been good. It's been busy for the right reasons, I think.
Yeah. So being here at Enterprise Connect, we're going to talk a little bit about communications. One of the big themes here was this concept of composability, which we've talked about before. Before we get started, though, I'm going to want to give a quick shout out to my media partner, eWeek. All ZKasts are done in conjunction with the eWeek eSpeaks program. So you and I were on a panel yesterday, and this is this topic of composability has become a big theme in the communications industry. What is composability, Simon, and why does it matter?
Well, it's an interesting concept that perhaps it's not necessarily born of something entirely new. Combinatorial innovation is something we've seen the value of, where we take more than one application, the combined application value creates that 1 + 1 = 5 kind of effect. But the benefits of the cloud consumption model, the various things, such as storage and compute, and the ways in which we can exploit the power of the API economy has changed the game in terms of this composability thing, where you can start to realize the speed to value of core applications, and then through purpose-built extensibility and the power of the API economy, start to create for really quite precise use cases. And that not just for customers, but for staff too, that being two sides of the same coin. Fundamentally, that's kind of the basics of this thing. And it's really quite exciting in terms of the opportunity it's creating.
Yeah, I think what the pandemic did was, in fact, we may look back at this era of the pandemic and realize just how much innovation we drove into technology in this time period. You brought up an interesting point that the combinatorial effect of bringing these components together and being able to compose experiences allows us to do more and provide a better experience for more people. And I think if you look at the massive number of communications tools we had prior to the pandemic, they were really built for your traditional knowledge worker or your traditional contact center agent. Didn't really work for everybody, though. And as we sent people home and we had to learn over these types of tools, and we had to do court proceedings, and we had to do telehealth and stuff like that. We learned very quickly that these stock applications didn't work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've used the phrase a few times now, but there isn't an app for that has become ever so prevalent. The reality is that when it comes to the kind of use cases we needed to support suddenly quite urgently, I would argue the pandemic didn't necessarily change the trajectory we were on, but it certainly accelerated. It created that urgency around trying to support quite precise use cases, things that we couldn't have predicted, enabling people to be productive where they are, creating all kinds of new challenges and trying to figure out new routes to growth, new routes to retaining and keeping customers happy and so on, giving rise to what was an extraordinary array of ways in which you could consider it a challenge, but also an opportunity to compose things for those kind of scenarios. And that's really been, I guess, in a way, as you say, the innovation that's been driven by this thing has been quite shocking, quite surprising, actually.
Yeah, so you use the A word, app, right? And prior to the pandemic, if we had to go build an application, we'd ask our developer.
Yes.
We'd go through this process of taking 6 months, a year, 2 years to build an app. But that's not good enough anymore, is it?
No. I mean, you're going to get so far with an app, and even if it's a very modern microservices-based app, let's be clear about microservices. They are a more efficient way, a more effective way to create an application that really is still reasonably monolithic by design, because you don't expose your microservices to your customers. That would be like giving them the source code, right? So you can create something very efficient, very effective to be able to innovate with it quickly. But that takes you so far in terms of these use cases. And what you need to do is think about how you can take that accelerated core application, but compose additional benefits and features that deliver on these quite precise use cases using the power of APIs. Sometimes extensibility based on design. So we've seen technology partners as part of our Experience Builder program that have built applications that compose very precisely and well with what might be something like the Avaya Spaces application that is by design in terms of principle enables that combinatorial thinking. But also when you want to just exploit the power of what is a commonly accessed API-based service, natural language understanding or whatever from a predictive intents from one of these mega vendors that offer a lot of that, being able to combine that to create something where 1 + 1 actually equals 10 in lots of ways if you've got the right kind of platform approach.
Yeah, so you mentioned Spaces, and that's a good example of something you can build on your API platform. But do you have an example where maybe one or more of your experience builder partners teamed up and were able to create that 1 + 1 = 3 type of model?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to be experts in everything, right? We're not going to be experts in online education. We're not going to be experts in perhaps voice recognition and facial ID recognition and voice biometrics and those kind of things. We understand these things. We're pretty good as a technology company. But why not empower the technology partners that are creating these kind of innovations in that space to be able to create something new with our technology? So as Avaya Spaces as a basic application or a platform application that is powered by CPaaS and enables you to repurpose the video engagement features, voice features, chat features, to be combined with something like the online learning capability that's come from one of our technology partners called Toolwire, was a great example of combinatorial innovation, composability by design, where they took what we thought was great about the app and said, hold on a second, we don't want to just recreate a classroom learning experience for students and teachers. Why don't we go ahead and reimagine what's possible there, thinking about the way students learn best, the way teachers reach their students best, and they composed the solution using Toolwire core online education solution to create something that was really quite groundbreaking, actually something you couldn't have imagined. And then in addition to that, the guys over at Journey.ai said, you know what, we do a lot of wonderful things around keeping people safe, in terms of the security aspects, and perhaps thinking about students, maybe we should be composing solutions together. And so it was wonderful to see that these two companies that wear the Experience Builder badge, easy for me to say, quite proudly come together and say, let's compose a solution together. And some of the parts of what they've created is exactly as we say, it's the multiplication of the benefits of all of these apps individually has become quite astounding, and is a great example of a composed solution.
Yeah, in fact, I'm pretty familiar with what you've done with Experience Builders, and I must say I like the structure of it because it does embrace that concept of composability, where you can have Avaya as the underlying API platform.
Yep.
You can have Toolwire bring the education piece. You can have Journey.ai bring the authentication piece. And then on top of that, through low-code, no-code tools, you could have a student bring their expertise and then customize it even further. So here's a case where historically, I'm not even sure you could have had that many constituents come together and build an application, but now everybody does what they do best, and you've got a solution that's optimized for the student.
Absolutely right, and it's a great point that you're making, which is we don't want to be the experts in all of these disciplines. What we want to do is enable those end user citizen developers, as you touched on, low-code, no-code support, with to be able to create what they think good looks like, to be able to take what is the core premise of our applications, our platform, our Avaya One Cloud platform, and extend that in all kinds of wonderful ways to create use cases we could never have imagined, and we wouldn't want to be entirely responsible for. We want to ensure the others can do it, can cope with developing themselves.
So let's pivot a little bit to this concept of platform. I know Avaya has spent the better part of the last really several years building a cloud-native platform from the ground up, right,
Yes.
to support this concept. And core to that is something you guys are calling your MPC, your media process core.
That's right.
What does that do, and why is that important?
Well, it's interesting when you look at the way the market supports collaboration, communication and collaboration. You've got contact center applications, unified communications apps,
And they're all coming together.
Collaboration, yeah, and everyone's talking about them coming together.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of look at that as the wrong way in. If you consider, when you look at voice, video, chat, social engagement, all these ways in which you want to communicate, and then you consider that being a common element across all of these apps, whether you're in a contact center environment, a meeting environment, perhaps it's something that a customer has composed. They've created a web page based video feature, maybe it's a doctor and the way they want to engage with patients, and then consider how Deliveroo application is put together with that triage of the buyer, the rider, and the restaurant, and ad infinitum, all of these apps that are all about communicating and collaborating. Do you think it's an efficient and effective way to create what is common across all these applications in each of the applications, and then thinking about all the AI you'd want to infuse in the different ways in each application? It's going to become, you're going to get lots of technical debt out there as people start to realize the benefits of these integrated applications. So the media processing core does something really important. It takes what is common to all of these applications and makes it part of this a service that is forming the heart and soul of the One Cloud platform. And what that means is it doesn't matter, it starts to look like, it doesn't matter where a voice engagement, a chat engagement, a video engagement start and ends. It becomes kind of less of a key focus area. So you can kind of create whatever you need to at that end user experience end. But you can also rely on the fact the AI infused within this core layer, whether it's transcription, translation, noise cancelling, green screening, upscaling, all of those things immediately becomes available to whatever these applications look like now and in the future. That's a different approach, and that really, as you've touched on, is perhaps a realization of this more modern cloud native application design that we've in this luxurious position to be able to realize that perhaps in some ways the way that the SaaS-based applications that are delivered today or available today have had to grow from quite a few years of realizing their core application, perhaps even some may say a bit more monolithic in design. And it's a big deal that, when we think about the platform, we think about we're supporting composability, we think about the future of this space, that the media processing core is probably the most important part of what we need, what buyers need to realize the future in this experience economy that we're always talking about, right?
Yeah, so when I think of Avaya, right, the media processing core is obviously a critical, nobody does media like Avaya does media, right? You've been doing it for the better part of 100 years, I think. But as you mentioned, you're not an AI company, you're not a security company. So how does this cloud native backend almost let you compose your own backend through partners, right? So who are some of the partners you use on the AI side, and what do they bring to the table in this cloud native offering that you have?
Yeah, I mean, we are pretty much working with every major vendor, obviously Google, Amazon in terms of Lex, Watson, all of those vendors that support natural language understanding, understanding intent, predictive analytics capabilities. We work with we have a co-opetition approach with a lot of the vendors that we see out there. We are effectively very tuned into the fact that when it comes to customers, they have already invested in a lot of cloud platforms and ecosystems. They may be an AWS shop, they may be an Azure shop, and they've started to build their own apps using microservices perhaps native to those environments. So our application ambition is to be, provide that kind of complementary combinatorial innovation to what they've already done, even considering what they've had for a while, where they might have to consider that bimodal approach of letting things still carry on doing what they do well, but now start to add some of that more modern innovation to it. So it's an open platform, it's an open cloud, it's an open kind of application, not integration, but kind of composer type of environment that we're really quite focused on at Avaya.
Yeah, it's interesting. You do partner with everything. Google, Amazon. I think you were the first NVIDIA Maxine partner as well, right? And that's interesting that you're able to bring these best-of-breed components in. Now, if I'm part of the audience watching this, or if I attend Enterprise Connect, I'm going to hear a lot about this term composability. Almost every vendor says they are.
Yes.
Right. And so if I'm a CIO and I'm trying to figure out what's my platform that I go forward with, into the hybrid work era, how do I really know that the vendor I'm choosing truly is composable, or is this part of marketing speak?
It's a great question. I mean, fundamentally, when you look at perhaps the underlying foundation to being in a composed solutions, it's driven by communications platform as a service, as a core ingredient.
Yeah, also known as CPaaS, right?
Exactly right, CPaaS. And that as a core platform is something that you should be looking at your vendor to make sure that they're supporting that kind of ability to not just CPaaS has matured. It used to be about cloud IVR and messaging solutions and so forth. But when you can create, like we did with our COVID application, a complete user experience, a workflow, an integrated solution that's HIPAA compliant to create an automated, very cool solution that uses prediction and natural language understanding, all within hours, you realize how CPaaS is a very different animal today. And that is the core, kind of on the shopping list that you should be thinking about when it comes to your communication and collaboration strategy that will take the lid off of any of the other core applications you may be considering, whether it's CCaaS, UCaaS, workstream collaboration. The important part of the whole design is to have that platform approach with that communication sort of ability with the low-code, no-code, speak to value for end users, citizen developers, not just your typical developers, being the important ingredient in the whole solution.
Yeah. You brought up the COVID example. I like that one. And the other really fascinating example that you guys had was with the health ministry in Egypt, where they created a sign language interpretation application for the citizens almost overnight. That, to me, that was pretty fascinating. So, all right, Simon. Well, I think this brings us to the end of our video. This was a fascinating discussion. I think composability. I think in this communications industry, we're really at the beginnings of it now, and I think it's really exciting for the end user audience, because I think you're going to see more innovation in this space, driven faster than ever before. And I'm really excited about the future of this. In fact, I think this is the most exciting time I've seen in communications, and you've been in this in a long time, and I'm sure you'd agree as well.
We've been around a while.
We have been around a while. Yeah.
I have to agree. It's been perhaps in terms of the way the customers are approaching us, the way they have this ambition to realize the power of apps and their apps teams. They don't want to have a certified consultant approach on a particular bit of communications technology. They want an apps approach. It means the market is kind of coming to us, see us. We're seeing it, and it's a big deal. I think it's an exciting new world that we're realizing. Yeah, well, one of your competitors wrote a book called Ask Your Developer. I think that's a little bit of old school thinking. Now I think it's Ask Your Composer, because composability is the future of communication. So, Simon Harrison, thank you very much for joining me. Always a pleasure.
I'm Zeus Caravallo from ZK Research. Don't forget to click to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on ZKast.